Just to warn you, this whole video might be a big shit show because I've got so many things going on. Hey BookTube, it's Kim at K-Becker's Books, and this is my mid-June review, and I'm totally frazzled because I've got piles of stuff, and I was trying to figure out how many videos should I make to present what I want to present. Should I just mash it all into one, or how should I divide? I don't know. I'm just going to go with what I got. So far, it's June 15th, and so far I've completed 3 books. Yeah, so let me tell you about the 3 books I did finish. And fortunately, each of them was a 5-star read for me for very different reasons. So the first one, in order of when I finished them, is the first one I read is a poetry collection by Denez Smith called Don't Call Us Dead. And I'm not a poetry reader. This one I saw on a few different channels in the last several months to a year, and it just sounded fascinating to me and really interesting. So I picked it up on my Kindle, and I'm not sorry because it is just spectacular in its language, in its imagery, its formatting. I was completely blown away. I am not the person that Denez Smith writes for. I am a middle-aged white woman. Denez is as far as I understand, a non-binary African-American who is HIV positive, a queer author. And so there's a lot of intersectionality going on there, and how all of those pieces of a person's life fit together and how they contrast. And the poetry collection was absolutely beautiful and searing and heartbreaking. There is a particular poem called Dear White America, and I am going to link the author's YouTube video below. Please watch it. Please listen to their voice. And I was honestly considering reading that out loud for the last tag that we did, the Amplify Voices tag. I ended up reading an excerpt from a novella by River Solomon called The Deep, but I was considering reading this poem, and I'm glad I did not, because there was no way in hell I would have been able to do it justice. So please open the link for the video and watch and listen to the author themselves read it. It is absolutely incredible. Yeah, so each of the poems speak to life as a Black American, life as a person who's HIV positive, queerness, homosexuality. There's all kinds of deep and biting and transparent language and imagery in the poetry. It's just, I don't even know what else to say about it. I hope those words do it justice because I thought it was just incredible. The second book I read was The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. It is the story of Star Carter. She is a 16-year-old girl. She's a Black American girl who lives in an inner city neighborhood, but was able to get a scholarship to go to a private school. So she is one of 2 Black children in the school. She goes to a party with a friend of hers in their neighborhood. So I believe all of the attenders at the party are all Black kids from her neighborhood. So they all know each other. There's nobody there that they don't recognize. And it's a pretty full party. There's a ton of people there. And so she goes, she doesn't really want to be there. She's got a hoodie on and sneakers, and she's not going for any other reason than to get out of the house. While she's there, she bumps into a childhood friend, Khalil, and they grew up together as little kids. And here they are, they're 16, 17 years old. And she bumps into Khalil, and they're talking, and they're catching up a little bit. Gunshots ring out at the party, and the 2 of them flee. They get into Khalil's car, and he's going to drive her home. I think he's actually going to take her to her father's grocery store that he actually worked at temporarily. On the way, they are stopped by the police, and Khalil's driving. It's his car. They're terrified, and so they realize, don't make any sudden movements. They're talking to each other, and she's asking him, do you have anything in the car? And he's like, no, I'm good. And so the police stop the car. The police escalates the situation, and Star is terrified. She has her hands on the dashboard, and she's in the passenger seat, and she's just trembling and doesn't know, is frozen in fear. So the officer, in an angry way, pulls Khalil out of the car, and he tells him, put your hands on the car, don't move. And the officer starts to walk back to his car, and Khalil leans into the driver's door to see if his friend Star is okay, and the police officer ends up shooting him 3 times and killing him. So it was very... Timely is such a stupid word to describe when I read this book and what was going on in real life, but this book is so powerful, and white people, read this book. Try to understand where the author is coming from, what the characters are dealing with. It's such a well-rounded story. It's a young adult novel. This is easily digested for a younger reader, and I think many of them should read it. The third book I read so far in June is The Sparrow by Mary Dory Russell. I just filmed a review video on this book, so I'm not going to say a lot here. I gave it I gave The Hate You Give 5 stars, and I gave The Sparrow 5 stars. Just an incredible first novel. But The Sparrow is a science fiction story of a Jesuit Catholic mission to a planet in space. And it was such very deep themes of good and evil, God, the power of God, an individual's purpose. It's just suffering. So yes, 3 books I completed so far in June. All 5 stars. I put on pause some other books that I'm currently reading, but I will go back to them. It's just I have other things that I want to read in June. So this one is Love in a Fallen City, short story collection by Eileen Chang. I have 2 stories left, and I will finish that book. Invisible Man, that I resurrected from a few months ago, by Ralph Ellison. I am a little more than halfway through. I will finish that book. The Cloister Walk by Kathleen Norris. This is a book I was also reading for maybe Midrash, and I am not yet halfway through. I will finish this, but this is very different than what I was expecting, and I will talk about that probably sometime in July. And P.S. I Love You by Cecilia Ahern. This is a contemporary, it was actually written quite a while ago, contemporary rom-com feel-good book that I really was enjoying, but again, put it down because I have other things I want to read. And I actually have somewhat of a TBR pile for the remainder of June, because June is Pride Month. And okay, before I get into my little TBR pile, I wanted to tell you a short story about my hair. Telling you, I'm all over the place with this video. June is Pride Month. I just got my hair cut about a week ago after months of coronavirus quarantine, blah, 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 everything was closed. I have been getting my hair cut super short since I was a teenager, and I'm 53. So, 35 years. And over the years, it's been one length or another, one color or another, back and forth, whatever. But for the most part, I've always had it cut this short or shorter. I have been bald before, and I have had my head completely shaved. I am a cis, straight, white woman, and I just have always enjoyed having super short hair. I feel liberated by it, and I just like it. My hair is baby fine, wispy thin, and I'm never able to do anything with it. It doesn't curl. There's no style. There's nothing. I've always loved having it super short, and the only reason I first got it cut super short when I was 19 was I went to my hairdresser and said, hey, how short can you cut it? He's like, watch me. And he did, and it was shorter than this and spikier, and I loved it. And ever since then, that's kind of been what I've done with my hair. Over the years, I've gotten many different reactions and comments. I've gotten hostility, typically from old white men. And I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's because if it's a generational thing where they don't believe a woman should get her hair cut this short. It's unnatural. It's whatever it is. I've been called sir from the front and the back, but mostly from the back. I don't know how you can call me sir from the front. We'll just leave it at that. I have been stared at and like, whoa, that's short hair. I have gotten comments from strangers, and I've just gotten comments from acquaintances. I've had people in my family just like, oh, why'd you get your hair cut that short? I've had co-workers who have said, do you always get your hair cut that short? I had a co-worker who she no longer works there. She was a female friend of mine. And she came into the ladies' room one day and she's like, can I just ask you a question? And I said, yeah. She's like, why do you get your hair cut so short? And I said, I actually really enjoy it this short, and it's really thin, and there's nothing else I can do with it. And she's like, you do know that you can see your scalp, right? And I'm like, I actually do know that. And I said, there's nothing I can do about it. And I said, it is what it is. I still enjoy getting my hair cut this short. And she's like, okay. She walked out of the ladies' room. Over the years, I've gotten all kinds of comments, and I do know that I can see my scalp, and I always have. It's like telling a fat person, do you know you're fat? Yes. Yes, I do. So I'm going to put up a couple pictures here. A couple years ago, I ended up developing alopecia, and it started off as spots all over my head, mostly in the back, that were completely bald and smooth bald. And I went to the dermatologist. He said, we can give you cortisone shots in your head if you want. I'm like, screw that. I'm not getting shots in my head. And, and then you could try this Rogaine, you could try this special ointment, this shampoo. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to shave my head. And I went to my hairdresser at the time, and she shaved my head for me. And she didn't do it all the way bald, but she did it just enough so there was a little bit of a shadow. But that's when I saw that I had like at least 10 spots all over my head that were completely bald. And I kept, asked the doctor, why is this happening? And they're like, well, often it's stress. It could be menopause. It could be, whatever. It could be, I don't know, environmental. And he's like, have you been under any stress? And I'm like, oh yeah. And at the time in my life, it was extraordinarily high stress. So I shaved my head for a year, and I shaved it bald. I took an electric razor, and I would literally clean it up so that I was Kojak bald. And then it would grow in a little bit, and I would just make sure it cleaned it up. And I wore caps whenever I went out, and I wore caps to work. And unfortunately, there were so many people that thought I was sick and had cancer and whatever. Why am I telling you this? Because over the years, people have told me that I look like a lesbian, and they've said that to me as an insult. And they said, you realize you look like a butch, right? And I'm like, so? And that was my pat answer over the years, is like, so what? I'm like, why does it matter to you how short my hair is? And, or are you a dyke? And all those comments have been thrown my way over the years. I've never had to deal with that being my label that somebody has thrown at me in a hostile way. And as little hostility as I have experienced over the years because of the length of my hair, of all things, I've never had to deal with actual persecution based on my sexuality or my gender assignment. So that all to say that during Pride Month, I'm choosing to read books that speak to those topics and that are written either by or for or about LGBTQ authors or topics or subjects. I don't have to deal with a lot of different kinds of persecution and against my person or my identity. So to me, it's just a haircut. And if somebody ever tells me again, you look like a lesbian, right? My answer is going to be, Thank you so much. That's awesome. Thanks. So anyway, the first book on my loose TBR for the rest of June is Amateur by Thomas Page McBee. Thomas Page McBee is the first transgender man to box a boxing match at Madison Square Garden. And this was a charity boxing match, and the book explores themes of gender, identity, masculinity, toxic masculinity. So that one looks really good. I'm actually currently reading The Argonauts by Maggie Nelson, which is a memoir talking about her life with her gender fluid partner, marriage, motherhood, life. Maggie Nelson is also a poet, and the language so far that I've read has been absolutely extraordinary. I'm also reading Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay, which is an essay collection on feminism, on gender, femininity. Roxane Gay is a bisexual Black American author. So far, so good. I really like those essays. I hope to get to Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo, who is a Black British author. The book has transgender themes and is a series of interlinked stories about primarily Black women in the UK. This is a book, The Stonewall Riots, by Abrams Books for Young Readers. This is a Stonewall Riots Pride Month book specifically geared towards younger readers. And I have a middle schooler, so I wanted to read this and give it to her if she's interested in reading it and encourage her to read that. So looking forward to that. This next one is a novel called Hide by Matthew Griffin, and I'm going to read a little bit of the jacket on this one. Wendell and Frank meet at the end of World War II when Frank returns home to their North Carolina town. Soon he's loitering around Wendell's taxidermy shop, and the two come to understand their connection as love. A love that in his time and place can hold real danger. Cutting nearly all ties with the rest of the world, they make a home for themselves on the outskirts of town, a string of beloved dogs for company. Wendell cooks, Frank cares for the yard, and together they enjoy the vicarious drama of courtroom TV. But when Wendell finds Frank lying outside among the tomatoes at the age of 83, he feels a new threat to their careful self-reliance. As Frank's physical strength and his memory deteriorate, the two of them must fully confront the sacrifices they've made for each other and the impending loss of life they've built. So that looks really good. And the last one is a fantasy novel, Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Nagin. And this is like I said, I think it's a young adult fantasy novel. And I'm not going to read the blurb, but very quickly, it's the story of a kingdom where a prince is trying to find the most beautiful girls to be concubines, and when they are basically kidnapped from their villages or their families, and typically either never seen from again or they're killed. And so one of the girls ends up purposefully being nabbed to be a concubine, and ends up falling in love with one of the other young girls who is there as well. So heard some really good things about this one, and I'm a fantasy fan, so that sounded like a lot of fun to read. So that's it. That's my mid-June review, TBR, currently reading, books on hold video. I don't know if any of it made sense, but that's what it is. Hope you like some of it, or a piece of it. I don't know. Come back for the next video. I'll be a lot more organized. Write a comment below, subscribe if you haven't already. I'll talk to you in the next video. See you later, bye.